All right, so now we're going to be talking about the pathway of a blood drop from the heart to the tooth and back to the heart. And there's a couple of times that they can take different pathways. For right now, we're going to concentrate on the capillaries of a mandibular molar tooth. So let's start in the left ventricle right here. Oxygenated blood indicated by our red letters. Left ventricle, we get a nice good squeeze of our ventricles and it shoots the oxygenated blood up into the aorta. From the aorta, the blood can take one of two paths depending on which side it's going to. If it is going to the left side, it will leave the aorta and go straight to the common carotid artery here. The left common carotid artery branches right off the aorta. If it is going to the right, let's say it's going to number 31, it will have to go through this little bypass, the brachiocephalic artery, to the right common carotid artery. All right, so the right common carotid artery has a slight bypass through the brachiocephalic artery. And then it will go superior into the right and left external carotid arteries, depending if you're going to the right side or if you're going to the left side. And we're heading towards those mandibular molars. Now here, this view, we'll think it's tooth number 31. So from the right-sided external carotid artery here, we will see it branch into the maxillary artery, and then we'll have this offshoot down here to the inferior alveolar artery, and finally into the capillaries of the mandibular molar tooth. So in this view, it would be 30, 31, and 32. So it's nourishing these with oxygen and nutrients and blood, all oxygen-based. Now the tooth has used up everything it needed. It's going to send the blood back, and it will send it through the inferior alveolar vein. Now you'll see we're looking at the other side. This image is facing the other side, so these are teeth 17, 18, and 19. Doesn't really matter whether you're using the right or left side, pretty much stays the same. So it will enter the inferior alveolar vein, and it will go through right here, this blood highway, the pterygoid venous plexus of veins, down to the maxillary vein, to our retromandibular vein right here, and then it will enter the common facial vein here, and then finally the internal jugular. And if you remember, the jugular veins parallel the carotid arteries. So here is our internal jugular vein right here. Can we see our facial? We sure can. So facial, we're just kind of going a little backwards from our last slide. Common facial to the internal jugular vein, goes down, 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 until we get to the brachiocephalic vein, which then dumps the deoxygenated blood into the superior vena cava. From the superior vena cava, here it will enter, the blood will enter the right atria, and then it will go very quickly into our right ventricle, still deoxygenated. Here, from the right ventricle, it will be pumped out through the pulmonary artery, the only artery in our body that carries deoxygenated blood. This deoxygenated blood will go to the lungs, where it will enter the capillaries of the lungs, where exchange will take place and the blood will become oxygenated. And you can see here I've made it go from blue to red. Now we're back, coming back towards the heart through the pulmonary veins here. So we're now in that pulmonary circuit. Enters through the pulmonary veins, the only veins in our body that carry oxygenated blood. And from the pulmonary veins, it will enter the left atria, and then it enters the left ventricle. And guess what? We're back to slide 0. So we are a closed loop, okay? We have gone from the left atria, that oxygenated blood has entered the left ventricle, ready to be squirted out of our aorta and be sent up through our carotid arteries to our brain and our teeth and our oral cavity and our nose to keep us well nourished with blood, oxygen, and nutrients.